I am ready to begin when you are, if you can let everybody in.
Yep, so everybody's in.
All right.
Thank you.
I would like to officially call to order the Tuesday, October 4th, 2022 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. And pursuant to the extension of Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this public meeting of the Town of Bolton Conservation Commission is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but the public can access this meeting while in progress by using Zoom Video Communications, Inc. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by telephone, cell phone, or personal computer using Zoom. We do have some guidelines for participants. Please use the chat or raise hand function if you wish to address the board. People will remain on mute until they're actually addressed by the board, and participants are required to display their first and last names. All that said, per our tradition, we will start with a roll call of present members. And I am Brian Barabee.
Paul Bramwell.
Bill Payne.
Joanne Guasanos.
Jim Garrity.
Rebecca Longball.
Okay. All right, so first up this evening, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open a public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, to consider a notice of intent for DEP file number one. Oh, do we have a file number? We do not. I'm sorry.
No, not as yet.
Okay, to open the discussion for a notice of intent for 580 Main Street, proposed multifamily residential development. Is the applicant or a representative for the applicant here this evening, Rebecca?
Yes, both Jim Lambert and Phil Cordiero are present at the meeting. And the property owner signed off on the notice of intent authorizing that they were comfortable with them filing because the property has not been sold yet, just to note.
Okay, good to note. Okay, so if one of the two applicants, if either one would like to give us a brief summary, to the briefest extent possible, of the project and what you're proposing.
Jim, as the owner, did you want to make comment first, or I'm happy to take the reins?
No, Phil, I'm just here for support. I'll cede it over to you.
Okay, terrific. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, and Rebecca. Phil Cordero from Allen and Major Associates, obviously joined at the table virtually by Jim Lambert, representing the applicant on the project. With permission of the members, I'd like to share my screen, and I'll give you a tour walkthrough of the project.
Yep, that would be fine. Rebecca, if you could allow that.
Just one moment, I apologize.
Sure.
And just confirm everybody's able to see that okay?
I can, yes.
Okay. So what I would like to do, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I will go as brief as possible. There's a lot of information to go through, but I'll do it as succinctly as I can and then open it up to the questions of the commission and really delve into details as you feel appropriate to the application. My initial share here is simply for the purposes of familiarizing the commission with the application address. This is 580 Main Street. This is the current site of the Bolton Office Park. Route 117 Main Street runs along the top portion of the screen. You can see Bolton Office Park as these concentric squares, which is the current leasable office space. There are parking facilities both existing in the northwest corner of the building, but then also southerly below the building, they have a large massed parking field and some ancillary parking to the west. The complex to the left is Bolton Country Manor. That is not part of our project, but it does share access to the main site driveway for the Bolton Office Park and consequently the Wood Partners application that we're about to discuss here today. The project, and I have to switch my screen share, I apologize again. The project that we're bringing before the commission is part of a comprehensive permit application that has been pursued through a LIP application with the select board of the town of Bolton and ultimately received a comprehensive permit through the Zoning Board of Appeals. And as part of the Zoning Board of Appeals process and issuance of a comprehensive permit, they allow and subsume all responsibilities of local permitting for any board or agency within the town of Bolton that would otherwise have jurisdiction. What I mean by that is, in their role as reviewing and approving authority, they step in the footsteps of the Conservation Commission to act under your local wetlands bylaw. So the application that's in front of you that we'll discuss here this evening is applied for under the State Wetlands Protection Act only. And while we've made every effort to meet the local performance standards of the bylaw, we do want to make sure the commission recognizes that there is a separation of permitting authorities because of the nature of the comprehensive permit. And I can get into that in greater detail if the commission is not familiar with that. I'm sure your agent can certainly outline that in much greater detail as well. So at the onset, the project is a residential multifamily project that will take over a portion of the 580 Main Street project, the existing land. The existing office park will be reduced in size, and Wood Partners, the applicant, will take over ownership of about 2/3 of the property. And that's illustrated generally on the plan that I have on the screen, where this area in the northwest corner will remain as the portion of the land that will remain controlled by Bolton Office Park. And then alternatively, the opposing corner and continuation of the land that actually extends quite a bit off screen, off plan, will become the owned land of Wood Partners and site of the development. So what's proposed and has been approved through the Zoning Board of Appeals is 4 multi-story residential buildings with 229 residential dwelling units. We have 3 detached garage parking spaces as part of our amenity package. We have a freestanding clubhouse, and then we have a variety of amenities that dot the landscape. We also have provided for additional areas for, excuse me, our water and fire water systems to be located on site. Since Bolton does not have a municipal water supply system, we will provide for our own. And we will also provide for our own wastewater treatment plant system in accordance with Mass DEP regulations. So again, simply just to familiarize the commission with the main components, these are the buildings, the residential buildings, 4 in total. This area, the smaller U-shaped building or L-shaped building, is our clubhouse. These linear buildings are our detached garages. And then we will also have a detached mail center for the residents to utilize for mail and package pickup. And then the secondary water, both domestic and fire, are located in the southwest corner. And everything is connected via paved surface traveled ways and also surface parking, of which we have approximately 380 total spaces on site. We have appeared in front of the commission in 3 separate occasions prior to being here with you this evening. And what we've been able to do with the commission is we pursued under an RDA application permission to drill and install a private water supply well located approximately where that red X is on the screen, both in the southeast corner. But then we appeared a second time for an additional well to be located in the southwesterly corner of the site. And that's in addition to 2 on-site wells that are already in place for drinking water supply to the Bolton Office Park. And I'll get into the water systems in just a minute. The RDA approved our ability to install those wells, which we then subsequently tested and reviewed with Mass DEP as part of their overarching permit process. Our third appearance with the commission was by our consultant, Goddard Consulting, and they did the heavy lifting under an ANRAD process. And they went through and they identified and confirmed with you and your peer review consultant all of the on-site resource areas that are applicable to this project, but more so to the entirety of 580 Main Street, So a portion of those will fall away for our application, but we did the entire site as part of the ANRAD tracking. Well, let me switch screens. And what I want to bring up is some colorful graphics.
Mr. Chair, just one point of clarification while we're
Please, Rebecca.
transitioning here. On the wells, so the RDA, and Phil and I have talked about this before as well, but just to clarify for the commission and those present from the public, the determinations that were applied for were relative to test well location. So obviously, when you're installing test wells, that may be in fact the location later on. But it was identified in both of those circumstances that it would be incorporated in a later notice of intent for the final. So I just want to clarify that because there may have been some confusion with how that was just stated.
Okay, so if there was confusion, I apologize for that. Your agent is, of course, correct. The approval was for testing of the wells. This notice of intent is going to absorb those wells as permanent entities as part of the site alteration. And we'll get into the scope of that as we move forward here. So in changing the screen, what I've endeavored to do by adding some color is to really highlight for the commission where our wetland resource areas are on site. Again, some of them applicable to us, some of them that will be not applicable to us, but will remain the purview to the remnant land of Bolton Office Park. So the first area in no particular order is along our easterly sideline of our site. And this is generally in this blue shaded zone, which I'm now highlighting in red just to make it a little more confusing, but just to draw everybody's attention to it. That is the wetland resource area of Great Brook, where we have identified bank, and you have affirmed its presence and its accuracy through the ANRAD process. So what that does under this notice of intent is it confirms for us that we have buffer zone or riparian zone, 100-foot inner riparian, and then 200-foot outer riparian. And everything that we're going to talk about here this evening is subject to those performance standards. Also, surrounding portions of Great Brook, we have bordering vegetated wetlands. So those generally follow right in line with the outer edge of that portion of Great Brook, but it is an on-site resource area. We have additional bordering vegetated wetlands along the southerly boundary of our property, which abuts the existing fire pond that's on site. And that fire pond is utilized as stormwater and fire pond management under the Bolton Office Park scenario. And I highlight that because we're going to talk about what that means under the proposed condition, but it does provide for a bordering vegetative wetland. The bordering vegetative wetland is the blue dashed line on the site plan. It actually continues quite a bit further than this particular plan shows. The ANRAD has it in its full detail. I have it to show generally the areas where we're proposing work that fall within that buffer zone. So if that bordering vegetated wetland line, the blue dashed, continues onward, it would wrap around and it actually comes back up on itself, and then it continues on to town land that's to the west of us, and it exists down behind the Florence Sawyer School and some offsite areas that we don't control. And then the last area, or excuse me, the second to last area that we have as a resource area, we have two isolated wetland areas located in the heart of the site, generally denoted by the orange circles that I've just highlighted. And then adjacent to portions of Great Brook is our last resource area. We have bordering land subject to flooding. So a floodplain that projects up onto the site and covers approximately this area. So riverfront, bordering land subject to flooding, BVW, and isolated vegetated wetlands. So what we're incumbent upon doing is providing for the commission a discussion. I'm going to just zoom in so we can get into some greater detail, starting with the riverfront. We have a large portion of the existing property that has previously been degraded through coverage of the asphalt parking lot that I showed you during the introduction that services the southerly portion of Bolton Office Park. It's not the entirety of it, but a portion of it falls within the riverfront and is considered degraded by the Wetlands Protection Act standard in absence of topsoil, and it's been covered by impervious. Additional to that, there's a significant portion of the land area that has been cleared and graded. So cleared of all vegetation and graded to provide lawn and landscape area. So we have about, not to throw some numbers at you, but just to have them to put on the table, we have about 106,000 square feet plus or minus of on-site riverfront area within the subject area controlled by Wood Partners now. So this is the isolated, the separated parcel of land that has been altered and or disturbed. And what we're seeking to do under our application is a modification to some of the areas that have been previously disturbed. So first and foremost, what the commission will note, and again, let me just highlight these so they're very readily visible. The purple line represents the 200-foot outer riparian zone, and then the shaded line, the lighter shaded line, represents the 100-foot inner riparian zone, again, off of Great Brook. By general reference, just so I can clearly explain what the other lines are, the green line that we have here, and I'm just highlighting it to draw everybody's attention, that is what could be considered a 25-foot no disturb zone under the local bylaw. And then additionally, the 100-foot buffer zone off of the BVW. So there's a lot happening right here in this easterly corner with the overlap of the riverfront and the BVW zone. So what we are asking for permission to do is this will become part of our parking tray for the site. So we would create a parking zone with access and circulation. It also, because it's the natural low point for our site, we would bury subsurface drainage, stormwater management drainage below the parking field. We would allow portions of it to recharge to the ground per the Massachusetts stormwater standards. And then the overflow from it would continue towards the natural water course out of the a riprap dissipator pad and ultimately flows into Great Brook. So that all exists within areas that have already been disturbed. We are seeking to minimize any intrusion into the riverfront zone by staying within that footprint. And what we've also been able to successfully do is we also wanted to make sure that we are not encroaching to the 25-foot no disturb buffer. Now, I mentioned at the outset, the comprehensive permit allows for some waiverability of local bylaws, of which the 25-foot performance buffer, no touch buffer, could be considered part of that. But we heard very loud and clear from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Your agent represented the commission quite well during those hearings through commentary, through written commentary, as did the town's peer review consultant, Horsley and Witten, to denote that that buffer zone is important to this commission. So we made sure to respect that buffer zone. So all of our grading, that no touch buffer zone, excuse me. So all of our grading has been kept outside of that 25-foot area. And where we would have otherwise had some grading, and we certainly had it during the initial application, we have scaled that back to provide a retaining wall that'll be about 27 feet off of the BVW line. Again, in the interest of making sure we are preserving that 25-foot no disturb for you, given how important it was to the community when we presented it through the Zoning Board of Appeals. Now, this area of the site, again, there's a lot of overlap of different resource areas. What's buried underneath here is also the bordering land subject to flooding. So what happens within Great Brook is there's a series of culvert pipes located approximately here in Great Brook that help contribute to create a floodplain. And what that floodplain boundary does is it extends onto the property and does something like this to create a bordering land subject to flooding resource area. Because of the extension of the parking lot, we would be seeking to fill that in under this application. The performance standards under the Act require us to calculate on a foot-by-foot basis what that volume is. And we have that in the application for you. And it's about 77,000 cubic feet, 77,033 to be exact. Because we're asking for permission to fill that in, we are creating southerly of that a compensatory flood storage replication zone. And that's what this grading represents, this concentrically circled graded area. It'll be directly adjacent to Great Brook. It is a replacement for the flood storage volume lost, and it's provided at the same interval basis as under existing conditions. And we can get into the tabular data as the commission see fits here this evening. But on each half a foot incremental level, starting at a base elevation of about 338 up to 340 and a half, which is the floodplain boundary, we have matched those existing floodplain volumes under this proposed condition here. That's what this odd grading sort of looks like, but it provides that storage back to be able to meet that performance standard. Under proposed conditions, we're meeting it at a minimum of a 1-to-1 ratio. It's 77,623. So we're exceeding that 77,033 by just a little bit on the upper volume level, but it is certainly there and in place. Now, while we're in the area of the compensatory flood storage, and I'm sort of giving the commission sort of a walking tour around the site in terms of how the resource areas comport with the project. You'll note again by the colored lines on the plan, which represent the 200-foot outer riparian zone, the 100-foot riparian zone. The green again is the no touch. The orange is the 100-foot buffer to the BVW. The parking lot that I alluded to from the existing Bolton Office Park is approximately here. And it continues on in towards the westerly direction. So this portion of it, just to highlight it, exists within the riverfront zone as degraded. And the area outside of it is that alteration zone. What we're going to be doing as part of our project and the creation of a well that was originally permitted for testing through the RDA is located right here. We intentionally located it just outside of the 25-foot no-touch buffer in coordination with your agent and with the commission. Once that well goes online to become part of a private, a public drinking water supply system, we are required under the Mass DEP standards to provide a zone 1 radius around that well, under which we're prohibited from certain activities. Those activities include vehicular access, they include parking lots, they include stormwater management, they include buildings. Generally, anything considered part of a development that's not naturalized is excluded and prohibited from the zone 1. So what we are providing for is a zone 1 boundary that generally follows this outer edge of our parking lot. And what that means for the commission is that within that zone, we are going to reclaim what's already out there now in terms of parked area, paved surface, not only within the riverfront, but also riverfront adjacent within the buffer to the BVW. So anything through here that's part of the asphalt system of the office park is going to be reclaimed and will become green surface, vegetated cover surface, where we're going to spray it with erosion seed mix and allow that area to naturalize, because the only activities that we can do through there will be simplified access for the maintenance of the well and nothing further. So part of this application, because of the well, certainly includes our opportunity and the official permitting for the installation of the underground water piping that will connect over to our treatment house, which we'll get to in a moment, but that's part of it. So once that work is completed, no further activity will take place within this zone 1 radius zone. And again, it is a circle, so it continues around off screen in multiple directions. And it will preclude us from further activity. And it essentially, without creating a conservation restriction, sort of creates a conservation restriction on a large area of this site. Now, the other thing that the commission will notice as we start again, continue walking around the site, is this line through here is our southerly BVW line that was established as part of the ANRAD. And within there, the subsequent boundary area is the pond. And that pond is utilized for dual purposes. It is a stormwater management pond, and it is a fire pond that the Bolton Fire Department can draw from as part of their regional fire response action plan. We're proposing, adjacent to the BVW, work for our southerly parking lot, which you can see, what you're looking at, Commission, is also the grading and drainage plan. So the individual line items for the parking spaces are not shown, but this plan shows the largest amount of impact that we will have adjacent to any of the wetland resource areas. But I'm happy to show the parking plan as appropriate. But once we've established that there's a BVW line around this pond, we establish this 100-foot buffer zone. So we are asking for permission within the buffer zone to construct this parking lot. And underneath this parking lot as well will be another subsurface drain field. And again, this is all part of our stormwater management to make sure we're recharging to ground, we're mitigating pre-development flows, both rate and volume on site, meeting all of those 10 Massachusetts stormwater standards, which we can get into in great detail. Now, where we are getting close to the BVW line is, I just have to zoom in a little bit here, is we will have some sloping that technically occurs within the 25-foot line. So the darkened line here represents the slope that we need to introduce to achieve the grades on site. So this area is actually a fill. And that fill allows us to put our stormwater management systems underneath the parking tray, meeting our separations to the groundwater table, groundwater mounting, and all of the design elements that we need to put into play. But it does encroach within the theoretical 25-foot no disturb line, which is the green dashed line. But what I do want to draw the Commission's attention to, and we can get into it in much greater detail, and I'm going to do my best to highlight it on this screen, is the existing limit of clearing for the office park is the shaded clamshell, which is generally right here in the line that I'm drawing. And currently, as part of some remediation for their surface water runoff that comes from their parking lot, they recently installed 3 riprap splash pads that drain directly off of their parking lot with no treatment, and it goes directly into that stormwater management / fire pond. We are asking for the Commission's permission to have 2 discharges located generally where the existing ones are on site. Where that disturbance has already taken place, we have cited our disturbance paralleling the current disturbance to avoid increased disturbance and minimize any additional work. We're not seeking any permission to clear any more trees or underbrush that's out there adjacent to this pond. And then the third riprap pad, which is generally about here, would be removed in its entirety, because in its place, we are going to provide for the project a full stormwater system in compliance with all current standards, recharge, water quality treatment, retention time, etc. There is no untreated runoff of stormwater into any of these resource areas. So these outfalls that are shown on the plan are post-treatment and is essentially clean water. Now, the pond that we have on site, and I believe it or not, this is as succinct as I can make it, so I'm trying to get through it for you. I know the Commission has a full agenda, but I want to hit all these important points and get into it. The pond that I highlighted for the Commission, which again is generally this line through here, because of the overlap to our zone 1, which is this outer radius, we can no longer utilize that as part of our stormwater management. Again, it's a prohibition under the Mass DEP standards. So the Commission, hopefully the Commission will note that our systems are located outside of the zone 1 radius in its entirety. Because of the overlap of the existing pond, we will no longer utilize that pond as part of stormwater management. That pond will remain. It will remain because it's part of the regional fire response plan. So we will provide accommodations for the fire department to be able to draft off of the water that's stored within it. But otherwise, it's going to become a pond under the traditional Wetlands Protection Act classification. So we want to note that we want to create this resource area as part of this project as mitigation for this additional work that we are doing on site. So we think it's a benefit for us. We have a naturalized water pond at the rear of the site. It's a feature to us. We think, we won't speak for you, we think it'll be a benefit to the commission in that we're creating an additional resource area that is no longer exposed to untreated stormwater, a direct runoff from a parking lot situation. There is a weir located within there, and there are some operation and maintenance elements that need to go along with that. We believe those will likely become part of an order of conditions if the commission sees fit to issue one for us. But we would like to look at it through the lens of it being a pond versus a stormwater management retention basin. Okay. Moving westerly, we continue our tour with the BVW, again, the blue line, the green line as the 25-foot no touch, and again, the orange out here as the buffer. I pause here momentarily to denote that we have an existing on-site well here that's going to be decommissioned. We are not going to utilize it as part of the proposed project. It doesn't meet certain yield requirements, and it's going to be decommissioned in accordance with DEP requirements. As we move on, you will notice, or the commission hopefully will notice, we get into another zone of overlapping ideals. The first and foremost, for the benefit of the commission, just to highlight on the screen, is here is your wetland BVW prescribed under the ANRAD. Here is the 100-foot buffer zone. So what we are asking the commission for opportunity to construct is a small portion of our parking lot, which occurs in the buffer zone here. All of the stormwater management, all of the stormwater collection from this parking lot routes through our stormwater system, ultimately through the subsurface infiltration system I just described, and then it'll discharge down through the pond resource area system and back out into the wetlands. Adjacent to that, we have a gravel access road that we have agreed to construct for the benefit of the town of Bolton. And for those familiar with this property, you may recall that there's an access path that continues generally in about this manner. And that access path provides foot traffic access, ideally, to the recreational sports field, the community garden, the back of Florence Sawyer School, multi-purpose. It is currently utilized by vehicles. So the vehicles drive through this zone and they will park right at the back of the property, and they will access all the sports fields. As part of the RDA that we did with the commission, we have installed another drinking water well here. And as part of this notice of intent, we're asking you for the permanent condition to exist, as well as the installation of the water lines and electric lines to feed that well within the buffer zone to the BVW. There is also an existing well located here. Both of those wells create their own zone 1, akin to what I spoke about on the other side of the site. And I'm crudely drawing them in the outlined arc. But what it does is that then precludes vehicular activity from further accessing the recreational sports fields and the community garden. We can't promote any traffic going through those zones because of the prohibition, the requirements of the DEP drinking water supply regulations. The fire department will remain accessible to the fire department if they have to respond, because we want to make sure life safety is paramount, but day-to-day operations can no longer be allowed through there. So as part of the proposed plan, we are constructing, let me clear some drawings here, I apologize. We're constructing a gravel path on our site that will then connect up to an existing gravel path that's off-site. This is actually Bolton Country Manor's property, and it actually wraps around and comes in on the backside of the Florence Sawyer School. So we've agreed through the comprehensive permit process with the Zoning Board of Appeals, with the Parks and Rec Committee, with town staff, to make sure that there's a continuity of access, but it is a gravel-based roadway where portions of it exist within the 100-foot buffer zone to the BBW, and is part of this application with you here this evening. While we're in the zone, within a zone 1, we can provide for infrastructure to the extent that it's directly associated with the public drinking water supply. So the two areas that I've denoted, which actually are located outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, but I just want to draw your attention to them, is for our drinking water supply storage buildings. So within there, we will draw the water in, we will treat the water, we will store the water, and then we will distribute the water back through the site as part of an underground, akin to a municipal system, but obviously entirely privately. Similarly, we will do the same for a fire line, which provides sprinklers for all of the residential buildings. So inherent to the permission under the notice of intent application is for the service lines that will exist within the buffer zone coming from the feed wells and then ultimately distributed back through the site. We have to do some underground trenching. Obviously, underground trenching is great in that we can do the work, we can install it, we can restore it to naturalized conditions with minimal disturbance as much as possible. So, okay, one last area, and I'm rounding the corner of the finish line. We have 2 isolated wetland resource areas that were prescribed under the ANRAD. Generally, they are area B, which is the lower one, is 3,170 square feet. Area C, which is the upper one, the elongated one, is 4,080 square feet. We are seeking permission through Mass DEP to fill those in. And I note through Mass DEP because at an aggregate of 7,250, they will require us to file a wetland filling WW 10 or 11, I forget the number, forgive me, application with Mass DEP for permission to fill in those wetlands if they deem them important, if they deem them wetland resource areas of important characteristics. So we will pursue those filling operations through the state level permitting. And we would ask the commission, again, if you're inclined to issue an order of conditions through this project, we would suggest or ask for a condition that this project is pursuant to us securing that permit from Mass DEP, because it steps outside of the realm of the meeting here with this commission. As part of the filling of these wetland resource areas, I move back over to our compensatory flood storage area. And what we're going to do at the lower tier of the compensatory flood storage area is we will create a replication, a wetland replication at a 1-to-1 ratio of the isolated wetland area lost on site. We will recreate it within the same wetland resource area regime, which is distinct to Great Brook. We will make it adjacent, and it will be constructed in accordance with standards for wetland replication, which is to say remove loam, put in more organic loam, put in wetland tolerant species, and allow that area to grow. It'll be graded at a manner that it'll be adjacent to the existing on-site wetland resource area. So it will be allowed to flood as part of normal high frequency, low intensity volume events to feed that wetland area. And it will also be part of the grading of the site that we will be channeling naturalized, untreated water runoff, but it's coming from sloped areas only through the wetland replication area to feed it, to allow it to grow as part of that process. And we're doing that as part of a 1-to-1 replication, so it meets certainly all the performance standards. In the packages of information that the commission has from us, we do have a wetland replication plan for you, which identifies the varying species that we can put in there. It identifies the methods and means of construction. It identifies how that organic loam will be placed and managed during and after construction while we're allowing for that grow-in period. As a last sort of summary statement to the application, we have provided as part of the package to the commission Everything that I've outlined here is certainly subject to erosion control practices. We've provided erosion control for consideration by the commission to denote and assert that we can construct this without introduction of any sediment to any of the existing resource areas. We are subject to a stormwater management plan and SWPPP under the EPA NEPD's permit program because we are adjacent to the waterway that is Great Brook, and it's a waterway of the US, of the Commonwealth, excuse me. So we will file a SWIP. That SWIP will prescribe in great detail to the contractors a laundry list of erosion measures and interim protection measures that can be put into place, again, to protect the on-site resource areas. We have endeavored to provide inside the application narrative for the commission all of the pertinent detail for all aspects of this project to make sure that we can convey to you that the approved project through the Zoning Board of Appeals can be constructed in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act. It can actually be constructed in accordance with the local bylaw, as I denoted at the onset, but please note that the comprehensive permit asserts that we've already met that local standard. So we're just talking about the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act here. So why don't I'll take a pause. I think there's a lot to synthesize in there. And I'm happy to take a pause and really start answering some questions for the commission in benefit of this project. I don't think we've gotten a file number yet, unfortunately, from DEP. But on the plus side, I also don't think DEP has issued any comments on the website, that they're looking for additional information on this project. So I take that also as a positive indicator. So I will now pause, please, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the overview. I know it's a big project, so it's a lot to get out. Just looking through for initial questions. And again, this is probably one of the larger projects I've seen here in town. So there's a lot to read through and understand. I'm trying to organize initial thoughts. In the plans that were shown, do you have any plans that show the full lot that go all the way out on the property lines?
I do. So I'm just going to switch screens on you and hopefully you
Sure.
can still see the plan here. Let me back up for you. Let me see here. Or actually, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to take that back.
Okay.
I didn't give it to you in the application. The comprehensive permit plans that we submitted did have a complete lot plan to denote where the transfer of ownership was going to take place and how it was divided. I did not include that in the notice of intent package. We focused it obviously on the areas of disturbance, but that's certainly something we can get to you if that's of interest to you and the members.
Sure. And I was going to say at this point, probably along with that, not uncommon for us to go out for a site visit. I know we've been to the site with the ANRAD, but I personally, and I'll let other members weigh in on this too, would kind of like to see some of this stuff marked out in the field to the extent that you can mark out where some of these things are going to be. I know most of the wetland markings are probably still out there, but just some idea, a general idea of where the buildings are going to be. The outline of that back parking lot, the parking lot that comes up next to the pond, basically where the new flood storage area is going to be, replication flood storage area that kind of cuts through the far end of the parking lot.
So to answer that, Mr. Chairman.
And also the new garage too, the extent of that, sorry, the box for that new garage. If we could see, especially things like that marked out in the field. And also this would kind of get us a chance too, if we were to schedule a site visit. I really would like to see plans that encompass the entire property and what exactly fully we're dealing with, what resources might be on the back end, things along those lines, and where it meets up with the ball field and the town gardens.
Sure. And that's fine. We can certainly do that. The ANRAD plan that's part of the record set definitely does that. It shows the full breadth of all of the resource areas, including the ones
Sure.
that do move down towards the community garden. So that's readily available data to the commission.
Sure.
In terms of the point about the site walk, certainly, we actually do have a number of the structures previously laid out on site to help navigate site walks that have taken place with members of the zoning board, members of town staff, members of the commission here. I think we've met on site together a couple of times as well. So we do have those areas denoted. Some of the ancillary areas, the flood mitigation areas, we don't have them laid out, but they're very easy to
I guess
explain where they
mean,
are.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's, I thought I had said too, that I recognize like the wetland resource areas are marked out in the field. We saw that, but what I'd like to see is that flood replication zone marked out.
Mhm.
And I think you said some of the buildings are already marked out as far as the parking garage. And I'd like to see that new the parking lot that goes up next to the pond, the square box of that.
Okay.
If that makes sense, marked out in the field. And I'll put it out to other commission members too, to see if there's things that they would like to see marked out in the field if we were to do a site visit. But those are just some of the initial ones that I know we haven't seen marked before. And I guess I can save a number of questions till after we've kind of had a chance to do a site walk to see somewhere where this stuff's going to be laid out in the field. A lot of how you're explaining it, a lot of it would make sense to me, especially a lot of the trade-offs that we're seeing. One of the reasons I'd like to see the full lot, I'm just curious if there were other places considered for the parking garage that's going up close to Great Brook. That if there were other places that were considered, why it couldn't be there, why we couldn't, change the layout. And I think seeing where the rest of the property line lies might help with that.
Sure.
and-
We can,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chairman.
No, you're
I
fine.
can answer the garage question.
Sure.
So we can certainly provide the plan in its entirety, of the site, so you can have that information. So the plan that's on the screen, really, though, even though the site is very large, this represents actually the only area that we can develop, largely precluded by those zone ones, the green circles that you might likely see on the plan. And then we didn't really talk about it because it's not jurisdictional.
That's why I was
to
curious
us.
if, go ahead.
Is our wastewater treatment area, which is at the northerly portion of the site. So once you start layering in all of the state level requirements of wastewater treatment, zone 1 public water supply, setbacks, the actual wetland resource areas, our very large parcel actually became very small very quickly, which is why it appears so very much condensed. So when we talk about the garage positioning, we're trying to achieve some reasonably even distribution for all of the potential residents here. So we try to locate them so there's an amenity garage tethered to each of the buildings. So in the case of garage C, which technically falls within the riparian zone that I laid out, it's because we want to allocate serviceability to building 2. And part of the challenge in terms of having it over here versus maybe some other areas that you might think would be opportunities, we do have some transitional grading that has to occur, and I'm drawing on my screen as if you can see me, but some transitional grading through here and through here that actually makes the site work. And we need to make sure that the garages are also accessibly compliant as necessary. So these
Sure.
areas are then precluded from the garage. We need to make sure that it occurs on a flat level plane. And that's how we ended up with the garage on the easterly portion of the site, as opposed, so within the resource area buffers, as opposed to somewhere else that might not be in a buffer. But the reality is, if we just zoom out just a little bit, a significant portion of our site is obviously in some form of a buffer area. So we sought to minimize where it was placed in an area that we could protect it, because it's also part of the stormwater management system. So all of those elements together result in, I don't want to say simplified construction, but let's call it controlled construction, for lack of a better term. So
Sure.
hopefully that answers it. But we can
It
show
does.
you where it is, of course, and then you can, render an opinion from that.
Yeah, no, that helps. And again, seeing the full plan, what areas were available. But again, the plan as you've laid it out makes a lot of sense. And I can see in many respects why things were laid out in certain ways. I guess just one of the other initial questions is that ball field and the town garden, recognizing that people wouldn't be able to get there by road anymore, there'd be a path to walk out there. But I know that path, as you were showing, it goes up past Florence Sawyer School. Is there any way for them to get down to where the ballpark and the town garden is? Like from that path, it looks like they would kind of have to head not south, but towards the bottom of the. Sorry, I mean, I'm just questioning how people will be able to get out to the ball field.
Sure. So let me,
If you want, Phil, I can answer that.
sure,
um,
yeah, sure.
So essentially, as Phil noted, it's not just because of the test well that was cited, but also the existing well. So
Sure.
that vehicular access that his mouse is on, oh, he just moved it. That should have never been present once that
Sure.
well was there. So the pathway still continues and will continue as it does today, just with some slight alteration where it meets their parking area on the existing gravel pathway. So you can make it all the way
Okay.
around to the
Oh,
water
okay.
supply, walk down to the lacrosse field there and through the field also.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to drive up to the garden nor the field, but that should not have been the case anyway. And for those present who have been at the select board meeting, ZBA, that has been expressed many times as far as how that came to be. But it's not because of this project. Unfortunately, that was just something
Should never be.
that was unfortunately in violation for a long period of time.
Right. So it said differently, if
Okay.
this project does not come to pass for any reason, you still need to make
Right.
alternate accommodations through here.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. I mean, I think those were some of my initial questions. Again, it's a big project for me relatively. I'd like to read through it more, and I'd like to kind of get out in the field and kind of have an idea where everything's getting laid out. But I want to open it up to commission members. Are there any commission members that have initial comments or indoor questions?
Yeah, Brian, just a quick question on the existing building. Is the existing building going to stay there? Or is that coming down?
So through the chair to answer the question, half the building is going to remain. So again, showing you on the aerial map, this building will remain. This building will be demolished, or at least a significant portion of it will be demolished.
Okay, thank you.
And Brian, I would definitely like to do a site visit as well. And I was curious about the parking lots. Do you know I mean, there's big parking lots there today. That's a lot of it goes away, right? Even it looks like a building will come on that southerly parking lot even. Do you know how many square feet the new parking lots will be compared to what's there today?
So I don't have that exact number for you, but I can get that. I don't have it at my fingertips for you, but I'll put that on my homework sheet for you to get you that exact conversion.
And how many parking spaces in the garages are you proposing, and compared to how many units are going to be?
Sure. Sure. So we have, and forgive me that I'm not looking at the camera, I'm just looking at my notes off screen. We have 229 residential units, and I think we have approximately 30 garaged parking spaces. Excuse me, 27 standard garage parking spaces and 1 accessible garage parking. So 28 in total garage. So about 10%.
Okay. Are there going to be any restrictions on this property as far as residents? There's not an age restriction or anything. It's open for anybody, right?
It's what they call a market rate project, which is it's open for anybody.
Yeah.
I'll probably speak out of turn. Jim, please chime in if you'd like. But as part of the tenancy, there are some preferential treatments for local Bolton residents, which is part of the affordability element. But it is generally open to all, so long as they meet certain income requirements for some of the units, and then other standards, I guess, for the developer for the rest.
Yeah, just more specifically, so under the 40B process, so 25% of the units are restricted to folks making 80% of AMI or less. So there's no age restriction, but there is a 25% portion of the property per the regulations that's restricted on affordability.
Oh, okay. So how many units would that be approximately?
So
I'm just curious.
Yeah,
as a
50
resident of
57.
Bolton. Okay, thank you. So that helps our other goals in the town.
Correct. It will get the town over the 10% threshold. Because actually the way the 40B regulations work is even though 25% of the units are restricted, the entire project counts towards the SHI list for the town.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have at this stage.
Other commission members have initial comments, questions?
Yeah, they talked about treating stormwater runoff. How was that treated?
Sure. So we have, as part of the stormwater management standards, we need to remove total suspended solids and also phosphorus. So the standard of care for a stormwater collection system of this type is that we have deep sump hooded catch basins, which remove a percentage of the total suspended solids. We have underground recharge systems which handle the phosphorus removal. And we also have water quality devices, so proprietary water quality devices that will remove an additional amount of the sediment loading that meets the standards. So when that water comes out of those outfall pipes that I showed you on both the east and the south, it's presumed clean under the standards, the Massachusetts stormwater standards.
Any additional questions from members of the commission? None. Sorry, not seeing any. Rebecca, do you have any initial comments, questions, and or thoughts? Points of
do.
emphasis? Please.
I do. So first, since the commission seems to be requesting a site visit, it would be helpful, or maybe Phil, you can just direct me to where it was. So you were talking about the riverfront area on this site particularly, and on this site, it sounded as though you're talking about what will be subdivided in the future. And we'll need the numbers for the entirety of the existing parcel. In addition to that, it would be helpful to provide at the same time the proposed alteration and a number associated with the existing alteration on site. Then with another note, I know you noted about keeping the pond as a pond. It's a resource area surrounded by BBW, so I think it's appreciated to note that, but it's to be protected in and of itself, or like you expressed similarly, if you were proposing to fill it or alter it, then you'd provide mitigation in that sense. So I just want to note that for those in the audience. Additionally, you had highlighted an area of BLSF, and on the ORAD, you would have seen that it was actually modified as to what was proposed on that. So unless there was some sort of an appeal of that ORAD, that's what stands as the commission's decision. And the commission's decision associated with that BLSF was associated with contour either 340 or 341 carried through the site, because as we're on site and very familiar with the site, that's how that area functions. So that was what the commission carried through the decision. And I have not seen anything of an appeal, so that's what you'll have to go with, unless DEP has some comments on that. But just to note that on your plans, you should show it and then compensate for that with your compensatory flood storage amounts.
And that, just to address very, very quickly, we can certainly talk about the pond. We can certainly talk about the BLSF relative to the ORAD. I am confident that we can accommodate whatever that statement is. In terms of the statement of calculation, those areas that you requested, Rebecca, those are in the report. We can talk about specifically where they are because we certainly know that it's of concern to the commission. What are those areas? How much is on site? How much is disturbed? How much is degraded? What are we doing, et cetera? So those are in the report, and
that's-
we can get together with those.
Okay, that would be great. And that's specific to, again, the existing whole parcel, not just this partial subdivided portion that you are developing.
So, so the numbers that are in the notice of intent are specific to our parcel because it has been divided through the A&R process. Now, if you would like the additional information for that portion that goes onto the, let's call it the remnant land of 580, we can certainly provide that. What it's going to denote is that there's A, more riverfront area,
Yep.
B, more alteration. So it's actually going to lessen our impact. So we
And
can
that's
take-
fine. If you could, in your response, it sounds like you're gonna provide another plan for Brian, or at least send him one, showing the entirety of the lot. We're gonna coordinate the site visit, it sounds like. At the same time, it would be helpful for you to provide that total number for the entirety of the site, again, for how 580 exists today. And then if you could note in that same, just noting where in the report, I can find it as well, I'm sure. But I can certainly pull that up. I didn't know if you had it offhand or if that had been incorporated yet. So I appreciate that at least for your proposed development, has been included, it sounds like.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, at this time, I have no further questions, but I think a site visit with the staked area would be helpful.
All right. I should also say tonight, are there any members of the public here tonight that wish to comment or have any initial questions for this hearing?
Again, the public can use the raise hand function or chat or physically wave. And I'm not
I'm
seeing
not
any.
seeing any. Okay. So in that case, Phil, with your permission and with the applicant's permission, is it okay if we continue this until our next public hearing and in between try to schedule that site visit in?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, with the applicant's consent, we can certainly continue to the next hearing. I guess I would ask, I have one follow-up question, maybe a clarifying question before we step away.
Please go
In
ahead.
terms of scheduling of the site walk, how will that take place outside of the meeting environment? So Rebecca, do you want to send us some dates that work with your commission and we'll just coordinate outside?
Yes, through our chair, typically how we handle this is I will reach out to the commission members individually, ask their availability between now and the next meeting. And then once I get a couple dates and times that work for them, then I reach out to you and see out of those dates and times, narrow it down to something that you and your team can accommodate. And then send out a final, this is the date, and then carry out the site visit.
Okay, terrific. We're happy to accommodate that. And again, Mr. Chairman, grant the continuance. I do have one other question, comment,
Please, go ahead, Bill.
procedural matter that I just want to bring up. It's best we do it earlier rather than later because, you know, time always gets away from everybody on these applications. So I know I gave you the simplified version of the overview, which almost took an hour, but it really is it's a complicated project. So what I want to introduce to the commission, something that the commission has to consider, as part of our zoning board of appeals process, we did a technical review on the engineering adequacy, the site development adequacy, zoning, et cetera, through a peer review consultant hired through the zoning board of appeals representing the town. And in the application materials, we made sure to include correspondence for the commission's benefit between ourselves and the applicants, the zoning board's peer review consultants. So that way the commission can get a sense of comfort that what we are providing to you has been thoroughly peer reviewed from the engineering perspective. And Horsley and Witten had also represented from a wetland scientist perspective as well. In fact, some of her commentary, Miss Amy Ball's commentary, resulted in us moving the design to respect that 25-foot no-touch buffer. The reason I bring all of that up is because everything is of a technical matter on some levels, and we've already gone through that technical review. I would like to raise the question to the commission whether that technical review will suffice for this commission's review of this notice of intent application. since we've already gone through it with the town's consultant.
I'm sorry, Phil, I couldn't even begin to answer that. I haven't read any of that. Like, I understand everything that you're saying. I do actually read these peer reviews when we get them. I am not an expert. It takes me time to get through. I haven't even seen those peer reviews yet, so
Okay.
I'm not comfortable agreeing to anything until I've actually read and seen everything, if that makes sense. I do apologize. I will say, this is a big project. It's something larger and more complex than I've ever had to deal with as a conservation commissioner. I am not an expert on the field. It would not surprise me at all if we look for a conservation focused peer review. And I'll put that out to other commissioners. And again, I think let's have the site visit, give myself and other commissioners a chance to read through everything, because as you said, all of that could be pretty easy. Maybe it's very easily laid out what we've already received from them. But I have no idea until we get a little further into it. And that's just me. Like, I'll let other commission members, if they feel differently, say so, but no, I'm not prepared to say anything
No,
like that.
Forgive me, Mr. Chair, I wasn't trying to
No,
paint anybody
no,
into
hey,
a corner.
there's no harm in asking. And
I
again,
want-
I appreciate, I like to move these processes along, as fast as possible, relatively. There's
Right.
no reason for delay, and there's no reason to duplicate work if we don't have to. So I'm always happy to look at that, and I have no problem with the question at all. I just have a little ways to go.
Understood. So I just wanted to put it out there.
Sure,
The sooner we can address it as a team, the better.
sure.
So that was the intent.
Okay. All right. So all that said, Rebecca, our next meeting is the 18th, I believe.
Yes,
What's our first available opening?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 580 Main Street until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 18th at 7 o'clock PM. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right. And all those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Thank you very much. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Excuse me. Rebecca, are you ready to continue? Yeah, okay. So the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetland Protection Act, to consider a notice of intent for the proposed Mallard Lane projects on South Bolton Road, map 2.C parcel 15.1, the proposed construction of 8 dwellings of an age-restricted housing complexes and all necessary infrastructure. Rebecca, is the applicant or somebody representing the applicant here this evening?
Yes, James Moran is present, and I'm not sure if anyone else from his team are present at the meeting this evening.
Okay. Jim, if possible, would you be willing to give us a quick overview of the project and what you are proposing?
All right, now I'm unmuted. Sorry about that.
No, you're
So
fine.
yes, I can walk you through this project. It's been near and dear to me for, I don't know, 4 years, so pretty familiar with it. It is stated in the application for the notice of intent. It's a condominium project consisting of 8 units. It's located on South Bolton Road. It's kind of between Spectacle Hill Road and Wheeler Road. It's known as the old Bonazzoli property. They used to use it as a storage yard. They had a construction company, I guess, in the front White House at 342. So they store here. And it was, I guess before that, it was a gravel pit that was used. The gravel was taken out to build 495. So as far as the soils go on the site, very permeable. We've done official soil testing with the Board of Health already for the septic systems and the detention ponds, obviously going for a ZBA approval, which we do have. So we had 22 feet, all sand and gravel. So that was very beneficial for us as we tried to load the infrastructure into the site. So like I said, it'll be an age-restricted 8 freestanding units, ranging around 2,000 square foot each. They'll be serviced with on-site wells individually, and one septic system down beside 342. You can see the testing down there, right in here.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. So as far as the project goes, it's pretty simple. We have worked with the ZBA and all the other boards, the zoning board of approval, obviously, and design review board. And we've narrowed it down to these specific locations for the units, taking into account the abutters concerns and so on, and agreeing to certain plantings and certain styles of homes. And so this thing's been really boiled off over the last couple of years to where we're at. I think the concerns that the Conservation Commission would have is around the wetland series, Series A, which is the big wetland series. It's kind of a depression. If you look at it when it dries up, and it dries up not every year, I think, but I've noticed it over the 4 years that I've owned the land, it dried up, and you can see there's an old gravel kind of road where all this property was originally owned by the Bonazzoli family, so they were graveling that area also. So there might be you know, it's filled by groundwater. It's not connected anywhere, but there was a local school department that went out and classified it as a vernal pool. So we knew that when we kind of got involved in this a long time ago. So we had certain buffers in mind. We didn't look to load the buffers areas at all. And then in going out there over time, we ran into that other small little wetland resource area, the B series, which I call the air wing of the property. It looks like an air wing. And the work we're doing it's all buffer zone work, and I'll cover that with the commission now. So there's a portion of the entrance that we're calling a glorified driveway. It's actually between station 200 and say 400. So, and there's a guardrail going to go in, and then there's some infrastructure right in that area. So it would be the buffer zone for the wetland series, wetland flag A series. And then the wells for units 1, 6, 7, and 8 will be within the buffer zone. Unit 7, which is slightly in the buffer zone on the air wing B series, excuse me, that's, yeah, the B series. And the stormwater outfall areas, which is in the buffer zone, it's behind unit 8. So again, compared to what we saw earlier, I don't want to bring that project up, but this project is minimal in size, but it has concerns from local butters, and you know that they want it done correctly. And you know, we did go through the comprehensive permit. Horsley and Whitman was representing the town for the ZBA. We did throw all the comments through all the boards and commissions. And we've been through, like I said, all the other boards and commissions, and everybody's commented on the project. So we do have the appeals over, and nobody appealed it. We do have our ZBA letter. So we're at the point of, you know, filing a notice of intent under the Wetlands Protection Act only for the comprehensive permit with the Conservation Commission. So that's kind of where we're at with the project.
Okay. I'm trying to think of initial questions. I was out on this site probably 4 years ago. I mean, whenever the project first started, I know it was an initial kind of just meet with the Conservation Commission to discuss
Right.
that vernal pool and where
Yeah.
things were going about. I think I'm the only commission member who's actually been out on the site. So again, I think, just the size and scope of this project, I think we'd kind of like to do a site visit.
Yeah.
I know I'd like to do a site visit. I knew we were going to look for those B series flags, but they weren't actually flagged the last time I was out there. It was
Right.
suggested there might be something else.
Yep.
So if possible, I'd like to get the other commission members out there, but I myself would like to go. I'd like to see where the B series series are, where those proposed wells are as well. I'm sure they're marked out there. And just kind of the back, I know there's the backs of like two of the houses kind of go within the resource area off of those flagged areas. Just to have an idea where those houses are, the ones that really kind of touch upon the resource area. It doesn't have to be exactly marked out in the field, but just generally a flag as to where the house is going to be, or just to give us a generally good idea.
Yeah. It being a formal gravel pit, most of the site is wide open. There are some trees in the far back, but the area that's all white around that cul-de-sac, it's all wide open right now.
Yeah.
So, and there's an existing road that's been used, that was used by the Bonazzoli family and so on. So we have good access to the site, and we could easily lay some things out that the commission would want to see.
Yeah, and that's really all I have for initial comments, questions, thoughts from myself is basically, I just want to kind of get out there and get an idea where everything's going. But again, I did have a chance to see the vernal pool early on. I kind of have an idea why the driveway went where the driveway went. So let me open it up to other commissioners. Do any other commission members have initial comments, questions, and or thoughts?
Brian, I would appreciate a site visit. I'm not familiar with the.
Okay.
Yeah, site visit would be great. I did notice that I think there was, 4 or 5 of the houses, the wells were within 50 feet or either a driveway or property line. Aside from some wetland areas, but did we look at that at all, Jim, or?
Yeah, we did. We went for some variance requests with the ZBA. They did give us in the letter from the ZBA, they did vary some of those well requirements. We will have to meet the DEP water well requirements on the siting, which is, the recommendation for a water well is 10 feet off the property line. So yeah, we did look at all the wells and their locations, and the ZBA did review them and comment on the locations.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, Jim, can I ask quick too? Was there any endangered species habitat? Did this have to go to natural heritage or anything?
No.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yep.
Sorry, other commission members have any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Rebecca, did you have any initial thoughts or comments on this particular project?
I don't think at this time, Brian, I think you highlighted the fact now that things can be staked out on site. I think that would be helpful to visit the site again, take a look at what's been flagged, and see if the commission has any concerns about that. In addition, to my knowledge, that has been certified as a vernal pool, but that we would have to reach out to Natural Heritage for that confirmation if we don't know that already. And then I do just want to highlight for the commission, there is another resource area across from South Bolton Road where the 100-foot actually comes across, just to be cognizant of that as well. So possibly while we're on site, we'd want to look at that and just have that area staked out as far as the alteration of the stormwater structure, and then the that unit there as well.
Okay. Are there any members of the public here tonight to comment on this particular hearing? I'm seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry, is somebody raising their hand? Nope.
No?
Okay,
Oh,
right.
is Charlotte? Are you raising your hand?
that's fine.
She was physically raising her hand.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested in, I saw this in the paper and I'm interested in it just because of the age restriction. And there's a good friend of mine who also had some questions, so that's why I tuned in.
Oh, awesome. Well, I will say the age restriction aspect of it, as I'm sure you might be aware, is not jurisdictional to the commission, so we won't be discussing that this evening.
Right.
But certainly the proximity to resource area and how basically the site as a whole physically.
I will say, I will ask the applicant, Jim, is there any way you can, I know it's not jurisdictional to us, but is there any way you could quickly answer a question about what the age restrictions might be?
Yeah, no, I'd be glad to do that. So
Thank you.
it's restricted a couple of ways, this project. For one, all 8 units will be age restricted, which means 55 plus. One of the owners has to be 55 or older. And then units 2 and units 5 are also age restricted, and they will go out on affordable rates rather than market rates. So it will be for, it has to be because of the 40B requirements. Unfortunately, it's a lottery, but again, the preference will be to a Bolton resident. And also they'll have to apply at the lottery. They will be given through a lottery system. Those are the requirements, because when you talk market rates to affordable rates, it's very attractive for somebody to get in there, because they will be kind of the whole idea with these units is to be aging in place. They're single story living. It'll be a great advantage for somebody to get one of these at an affordable rate. Especially a Bolton resident, that's what we would prefer, to tell you the truth. So, if you need more information, you can go through the town planning board. They have all the affordables and what the requirements are. And also, we'll be advertising these units and they'll be through a lottery system, the 2 affordable units, if you're interested in those.
Okay.
Great. And I was interested in the layout of the subdivision, which you guys did show, and I'm pleased about that. This was worth tuning in.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad. All right, and any other members of the public have any comments or questions for this particular hearing? And again, I'm seeing none right here. Right now. So Jim, with your permission, would it be okay if we continue this until our next public hearing so that we can set up a site visit and try to get
Yes.
commission members out there?
Yes,
Right.
please.
Excellent, thank you. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for South Bolton Road proposed Mallard Lane construction till our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 18th. At 7:20 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you. And as you heard before, I will reach out to the commission members individually, gather their availability, and then propose that availability to you, and then we'll confirm the site visit date and time.
Okay, I look forward to seeing everybody out there. Have a good night.
All right, take care, Jim.
Yep, bye.
All right, Rebecca, are you good to continue? In that case, the Bolton Conservation Commission will now open the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton bylaw, chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 8 South Bolton Road, the proposed addition of an elevated 16 by 23 deck extending from the rear of the existing house. Rebecca, is the applicant or somebody representing the applicant here tonight?
I am not seeing anyone, Brian.
Okay.
Um,
I-
but what I will say though is that I tried to delineate it on this map as best as possible.
Yep.
Mostly all of the site is within riverfront area and or the adjacent upland resource area, which is also the buffer zone. So the red box that you see on the screen is actually the location of the house, which is right on the edge. And again, this delineation is not exact, but right on the edge of the outer riparian area and within the 100-foot buffer, which is also the adjacent upland resource area. Obviously, the house is existing, and then the deck will be located attached to the home.
That's it. All right. I guess for me, and especially without the applicant here, and I appreciate you giving the overview. I would say we probably try to schedule a site visit for this.
Okay.
Just because, again, with everything being in the resource area, I'd like to kind of take a look and see what we'd be agreeing to. But my understanding is that it's not a covered deck in any way, shape, or form. It's just a regular deck, and in theory would be pervious going over currently maintained lawn or other pervious surface.
That was my impression, yes.
Okay. But without being able to fully confirm that with everybody, I'd like the opportunity just to go out there and take a look. And if in trying to set up a site visit with the applicant, if you could just ask them if they could mark out where the deck's going to be, if they could just kind of stake out the corners of the deck.
Yep.
Without the applicant here, would we be able to continue this?
So I was made aware recently
Okay.
that it's at your discretion, and then if
Okay.
multiple times occur, then you would essentially close because you have no new information being provided.
Okay. In that case, I was gonna say, in that case, I'll probably just use my discretion to go ahead and continue this.
Okay.
I was gonna say, worst case scenario, if we needed to close tonight, we could always go out, take a look at the project, and then in theory, vote on an RDA next time. I guess we couldn't really.
Technically, again, that'd be at your discretion. That would be, we can't accept any new information at that time
Nope.
once it's closed.
But we could email you our comments and thoughts to be included into our
Well,
determination.
you can still deliberate and vote,
Okay.
but you can't accept any comments from the public and you can't accept new information.
Sure.
So really the question would be, is the site visit, are you considering that new information or not? And I don't have the answer for that.
Right. So in this particular instance, this particular time, I think we'd use our discretion because scheduling the site visit would provide us with the answers to a number of questions. And go ahead and unilateral, would I call for a vote, or can I unilaterally? I guess I would have to call for a vote to continue it.
Yeah.
Thanks, right?
Yep.
Excuse me, I've been losing my voice all week, so. Okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 8 South Bolton Road until our next public meeting, Tuesday, October 18th at 7:30 p.m. Do I hear a second for continuing?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. over some of these. All right. The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Bolton Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider a request for determination of applicability for 302 Berlin Road, proposed construction of a 24 by 48 garage and shed structure. Excuse me. And by way of update, if I can remember where we left off, we had a chance to go out to the site. Commission members had questions and comments last time. We basically had taken a look at the RDA. We're kind of comfortable with the location, had suggested kind of pulling the location a little bit forward towards the existing driveway. And then we were discussing possible mitigation measures, because I think our one remaining concern was just roof runoff, just the loss of pervious area, and how to lessen or basically mitigate for that flow. Is that a fair assessment of where we were, Rebecca? Okay. Excuse me. All right. And since that meeting, were we able to basically, we have the regular RDA. I think we could probably condition an RDA allowing for multiple different methods of mitigation for runoff. I know some of the methods that we've used in the past. I guess my one question, Rebecca, to you, and I'm not sure if you would have an answer, is trying to determine the extent of mitigation, if that makes sense. These are some of the methods we use, and whichever of these methods you choose would need to mitigate to basically not a 1-to-1, but I'm trying to think of a ratio mixture that we would try to impose with using of one of these different techniques.
So I would say first you'd want to add into the language of the commission that you're capturing all roof runoff and directing away from the resource area by methods such as, and then
Okay.
the different methods that have been previously approved. And if you were incorporating a portion of mitigation associated with planting or allowing an area to naturalize, typically the commission uses the 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
And then must have a success rate of 75% over 2 growing periods or 2 years, depending on how the commission feels to condition that area.
Okay. Sorry.
Do you need me to repeat any of that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm trying to jot it down because I was going to say some of these I remember. I just need to actually see it.
Yeah.
So I should put out other commission members. Anybody have thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, or things they would like to see if we approve the plans as they were laid out at last meeting? Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to try to get this out. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we close the public hearing for 302 Berlin Road. Do I hear a second for closing?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Hi.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well. Excuse me. All right. I'd like to make a motion that we issue a -3 determination for 302 Berlin Road with the following conditions. That all roof runoff for the new structure be captured to avoid excess infiltration into the resource area, and that the applicants can use one or more of several methods in which to do this that were approved by the commission. These would include the installation of rain gardens at a approximate 2-to-1 ratio for the area that is for pervious area that is becoming impervious. And those gardens to have a 75% success rate after 2 growing seasons. Or infiltration or stone trenches along the perimeter of the new structure, also known as a drip edge. Excuse me. Or the use of rain barrels to capture gutters and rain barrels to capture roof runoff and provide slow infiltration back into some of the more upland areas. Native plantings, mitigation of existing yard and areas being renaturalized or returned to native plantings, again, at that approximate 2-to-1 ratio with 75% success rate over 2 growing seasons. The installation of a dry well and possible installation of a green roof. I think those are many of the methods that we've allowed in the past. So a -3 determination with the following conditions that they can use one or more of those methods to compensate for the lack of infiltration of the roof runoff. If there is an additional method that they would like to use, they are welcome to come back to the commission and ask permission, and we would consider an alternate method that achieves those same purposes. Excuse me. Do I hear a second for the -3 determination with the conditions as proposed?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For just the applicant's knowledge of this, or the next steps, really. So the RDA or the determination will be available for the commission members to sign. Once it's signed and mailed, the mailing date is the issuance date. You're also welcome to send me an email or call my office to schedule a time to pick up that document, because again, the reason why is I need the date it's picked up or mailed. If you'd prefer it mailed to a different address rather than the 302 Berlin Road, also email me with that. But if 302 is fine, I see Jeanette shaking her head, that's okay as well. And I typically, but when I mail it, I also send you an email that day so that you're aware that it's in the mail and you should be expecting it. Once it's issued and received, there is a 10-day appeal period. Some individuals choose to reach out to DEP to see if this is a project of interest to them. Some individuals choose to just wait out the 10 days and then start their work. So that is what you can expect going forward, but you can definitely expect to hear from me once all the signatures are received.
I appreciate it. That's amazing. I just need my husband home now. He's still in Puerto Rico and I'm still in the Bolton Common parking lot. So I appreciate it. We'll get together one day. We'll build a shed. Yay. Thank you.
Good luck, Jeanette. Take care.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Oh, there he is. All right. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you could mail it, that would be amazing. Thank you.
Right.
Hey, these suggestions are great, and we will work with this, and we want to have successful interaction. But we're not familiar with the green roof or a dry well or native plant, native plants. We're gonna need some more guidance. Can you provide that, or do we have to go with the contractor that can do that?
I certainly cannot, and it would be mindful for the commission not to either, just due to how we approach other projects, make sure we're approaching all of them equally. So it would be mindful to work with a contractor to make sure things are being installed correctly. There are different specs for each of those that you can find online, I'm sure. But we're certainly calling a contractor. They should be able to assist you with that.
Okay, I have one more question. When you say it's a ratio of 1-to-1 capturing that runoff, I mean, that's on a downhill slope into the wetlands. I mean, I don't want to starve the wetlands.
You won't.
Yeah.
So that is a very good thought. So the 1-to-1 or the 2-to-1 ratio, that's specific to the plantings that you would be installing. And because the way that your lot is sloped, and a contractor will explain this to you as well, I'm sure, it eventually will still get to the you have plenty of area that rain and precipitation is still hitting and draining into the resource area. What the commission doesn't want is it hitting an impervious surface and then going directly into the resource area. We want it to infiltrate either into or filter through and then go to the resource area. So that's why you'd be directing it to the opposite side of the structure, essentially.
Okay, if it helps, we're trying to avoid streams and ruts to
Yeah.
a great extent. Is a lot of what we've seen is you get these unexpected little ruts that become little mini streams that go from the back of somebody's shed that go directly into the stream over time. And we're basically just trying to get everything to still infiltrate on your lawn, rather most of it just kind of infiltrate the ground on your lawn and not to see any real flow going towards the back, if that makes sense.
So more soak it in and let it disperse underground rather than running down on top of the ground.
Right. And that's, a lot of, and again, you can look at the different things online. One's not better than the other. You see what works for you, but things like rain barrels and dry wells, where it captures a lot of that runoff and then you can use it in other ways, or you can at least slowly let it infiltrate back into the lawn or into like the flatter areas.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right. Moving along. Our final one this evening. So I was going to say, Rebecca, I don't need to actually open the vote, do I? Because we've actually closed the public hearing for this. Okay.
Yep.
So I guess our last real vote of the evening for commission members is voting to issue the notice of intent for 357 Main Street as currently drafted after comments and all of our additions from last meeting. If I had a chance to look at the draft, it looked fine to me. Did other commission members have any additional comments, questions, edits, issues? All right, I'm seeing none. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we issue an order of conditions for 357 Main Street, DEP file number 112-016, as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Thank you.
Say, just gonna ask you, did commission members have a chance to read through the minutes from both our September 6th and September 27th, 2022 meetings? And if so, any edits, corrections, changes? And if not, does anybody need any more time to read through those minutes? Seeing no comment. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our September 6th, 2020, yeah. I think to make a motion that we approve the minutes for our September 6th, 2022 meeting and our September 27th, 2022 meeting as drafted and submitted at this evening's meeting. Do I hear a second for approving the minutes?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
I abstain from, so I wasn't present on the sixth.
Yep. Jim?
Aye.
All right, and Rebecca, I'm an aye as well.
Okay.
Rebecca, would you mind walking us through the updates?
Sure.
Thank
We have one that actually occurred between the time that this was posted and the meeting was held. And that was an enforcement order was issued to 727 Main Street for a pipe that was discharging effluent into the perennial stream behind Main Street that runs under the common. I was called out to the site with Board of Health. They were following up on an odor complaint and found that, and then I got called out to the site. I think in a sense, the drought worked in our favor, if that's how you want to phrase that, which I don't in a sense, but it basically allowed for that pipe to be exposed so that we could see clearly the effluent flowing from the pipe. So the enforcement order has required the property owner to disconnect that pipe and provide proof from an engineer certifying that the current infrastructure can serve as a tight tank until they're able to upgrade to a Title V. Now, that being said, the property owner has come in and they do understand and have reviewed with me what they need to do to come into compliance. So at this time, I have not fined them, but that is always something on the table for the commission. But again, that enforcement order was issued so that that timeline could start for them and that they can work to remove that pipe that is discharging into the river. Under that order, they are required to submit a notice of intent for that full upgrade and removal of what's there, and then upgrade to meet Title V requirements. So I guess the ask of the commission, we can do it at the next meeting as well, is I would just ask that the commission vote to memorialize the fact that that was issued as we do typically, because obviously not all of you can be running out there to issue in circumstances like this. But so if Brian, how do you want to handle that, I guess?
I mean, I have no issue memorializing it now, as you've described it. Again, no, if other commission members disagree, I'll put it out there to you, but generally speaking, I agree, Rebecca, if somebody is moving in a positive direction in a relatively timely manner, I don't think we need to start with a fine, but I always like to reserve that just in case. I'd be fine voting on that side. Other commission members feel strongly one way or another? Okay. All right. In that case, I'd like to call a roll call vote to issue an enforcement order for 727 Main Street for the removal of a pipe that currently seems to be leaking or flowing effluent material into a perennial stream. All those in favor of issuing the enforcement order as described earlier by Rebecca, please say aye, starting with Paul.
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Jillian?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Rebecca, I am an aye myself.
Okay, thank you. So that will also be in the signature packet for you to sign. And so our other updates are, we have no update, but it's going to remain on the agenda because we should have an update shortly about the Bolton Trails Connectivity Improvement Project. This is the project funded by Mass Trails for the 9 crossings for repair and replacement of some. Right now, we're just waiting on contract documents. And the other is, I would ask that the commission consider a vote to accept the project scope and require the scout to return for the final review after receiving approval from their Scout Council Review Board. So this is in relation to the Bower Springs property that we walked with Camden and reviewed the different areas on site that he was interested in working on to resolve some of the erosion issues and improve some of the base trail to reduce tripping hazards and try to address some of the compaction there as well.
In that case, I'd like to call a roll call vote. To approve the project scope of the proposed Eagle Scout Bowers Spring project and to require said scout to return for a final review after receiving approval from the Scout Council Review Board. All those in favor, please say aye. And we will again start with Paul.
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca, I am an aye as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think the Scout will appreciate that as well, so they can then relay that to their council board. The other updates we have is, of course, the current MVP project, our Lawns and Landscapes Task Group in association with that. At present, we are scheduling associated site visits, so we'll be visiting a few sites between Bolton and Clinton, our partner community, to look at some areas, again, that are focused on lawns or ornamental landscaped areas or sports fields, to see how there could be good practices going on in terms of climate resiliency, or to actually be looking at that for proposing some resiliency management and maintenance measures. So another note on that is, if you have, even if you can't make that site visit or won't be directly participating in the task group, if you have a site in mind, certainly feel free to reach out either by phone or email and let me know. And I'd be more than happy to throw that in the ring, and maybe we'll go visit that site and look at it through the lens of this project. The other opportunities are the volunteer land steward position and then the open space and recreation plan subcommittee. Come November, I will be doing a much greater push from Parks and Rec and then the Conservation Department, obviously, as well, to reach out to the community, get some survey outreach materials to really engage in and get some members for that subcommittee. So if you have interested members or interested community members or relatives or even kids at the high school who want to participate, I think it's really important to get them involved as well. So please feel free to reach out and I will keep them in the loop if that is the case. And same thing, as part of that process, a lot of the information will be coming before this board, but also if you would like to serve on that subcommittee as well, I think it would be very valuable and helpful. So that is what I have for this evening.
That is excellent. Can I ask you, I looked at the packet for this evening and stuff, and I may have missed it. The peer reviews that were already done for 580 Main Street, are those easily found on the town website? Were those in that packet?
They should be in the packet.
Okay.
If not, I can certainly double check what it should be on the town website under the notice of intent.
The original. And
Yeah.
again, I think it was in there. I was trying to think if I had seen it. I could not remember. And for whatever reason, if I can't find it, I'll reach out to you, ask you where I might be able to. All right.
Yeah, and tomorrow morning, I'll confirm that and send an email that just links it as well.
All right.
But it should be on the town website under current projects, conservation, 580 Main under NOI. There's also a hyperlink that shows the plan, but the NOI should be a very extensive packet of information.
Okay. Thank you. Any other commission members have any new business? All right, seeing none. I'd like to then go ahead and I'd like to propose that we I'd like to make a motion that we hereby adjourn the October 4th, 2022 meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission. Do I hear a second for adjourning?
Second,
All right, all those in favor, starting with Paul,
Aye.
Bill,
aye.
Jillian,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
and Rebecca. I am an I as well.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Everybody take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.
Bye.